Nobody gets you ready for Utah football more than the KSL Sports Zone.
Ready?
Kyle Whittingham and the Utes are back at home for a showdown against Arizona State. Your home for the best coverage of Utah football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's now time, Ben, to talk some Arizona State Sun Devil football. Joining the show now, he covers Arizona State for Sports 360 AZ. He is Jordan Hamm with us here on Jake and Ben. What's going on, Jordan?
Hey, Jordan.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Jordan, what's been the story for Arizona State through the first 5 weeks of the season leading up to this game against Utah?
Yeah, I think it was a team that obviously came in with a lot of expectation coming off their Big 12 championship. And it was kind of weighing, what does this new team kind of look like and that sort of thing. And I think there were a couple of growing pains. They dropped a game at Mississippi State, very tough environment. And even in some of their wins, it just kind of felt like, especially on the offensive side, things weren't quite clicking as maybe some expected. But it feels like over the past couple weeks, they've really been able to come on strong, especially once they open up Big 12 play. You get a win on the road at a tough Baylor, and then you get a Friday night win against TCU, and then you have the bye, and now a massive game against Utah, and they're entering a pretty tough stretch of their schedule where there are, a lot of those top teams in the Big 12 they're going to be playing here in the next month or so.
How much of the offensive clunkiness is related to, and I know this is obvious take time, but related to the absence of Cam Scadaboo?
I think actually where they've been pretty good has still been the run game. I think where they miss Cam Scadaboo is he just brought an edge to that team and just kind of brought when you're inside the 5 and you need to get the ball in the end zone, you knew where it was going. And I think you can also say that about their center, Lee Fatanu, from last year, who was a very important leader on this team. But in terms of them, not having the running game doesn't quite have the same punch that it did, I don't think that's necessarily the case. Raleek Brown's been very, very good for them. I think it's more just trying to cater your style now to the personnel that you have, and they have had some injuries in the wide receiver room, so I think that kind of played a little bit of a role, and it's just kind of figuring out, you have this elite wide receiver in Jordan Tyson, but you don't want to be, hey, everybody knows Jordan Tyson's getting the ball 20 times and nobody else is getting targets. So how do you divvy that up while also making sure that your projected first-round wide receiver is getting everything he needs to help move the chains?
Jordan, statistically, Arizona State's been very good against the run this year, but there are some questions whether or not TCU or Baylor wants to run the ball, and the teams they played before that are not necessarily the most exciting. So do you believe in their run defense and the success they've had so far this season?
I do, because they were very good against the run last year, and a good chunk of that front seven has returned. They really didn't bring in many new guys in those two groups, the defensive line and the linebackers. And that's really, it feels like it all starts there with defensive coordinator Brian Ward. If you can slow down the run, even make it pretty stagnant, then the passing defense can also play at a very high level. So that's been something that's been a staple of these defenses the past couple of years. And now you're just seeing kind of almost a level up, because so many of these guys are now in the second year of that system, that they're even able to be, that much more effective.
I'll be honest, from afar, I really like Kenny Dillingham and watching his act down there at Arizona State. And I know we actually, our morning show host is a Sun Devil, believe it or not. So the Sun Devils come up more than you'd think here in Salt Lake. And I think Dillingham has been a great fit. I saw him throwing around the water bottles, getting everybody used to the wet footballs, I guess. My question is, for somebody who covers him closely, why has he worked so well in Tempe so far?
I think he's just been really authentic and really honest. And, the previous coaching staff and leaders of the athletic department. Like, it was in a rough place with the sanctions and, the team struggling on the field. And it just kind of felt like it was over and over just coach speak. And you can tell that he really cares. And, he grew up here. Actually, I went to the same high school as him. His wife was my lab partner senior year of high school. So, it's just funny that crossover now that's happening so many years later. But he brought in, there were a couple coaches who had local ties on the team when he came in, and he kept a couple of them, and then he brought some really good prep level high school coaches, into new roles, and they're starting to really thrive. So it's, you can see the authenticity when it's like, hey, I've seen ASU be this quote unquote sleeping giant for 35 years now. Like, how can we get it over the hump, and how can we make sure it's not a flash in the pan and it's a sustainable thing where every year, this is the place to be on Saturdays. So I think he really acknowledges that he kind of goes to the beat of his own drummer, and he's, can be a little, goofy at times, and he just fully embraces that, and he encourages his guys to embrace that as well. So I think that's really resonated with Arizona and, this Tempe market especially.
What do you think the optimism is or perspective is for Arizona State's chances against Utah? Because I get the sense from Utah fans still that there's some uncertainty about exactly how high level this team is.
Yeah, I think the same can be said for Arizona State. I think they know the thing is they're always going to play their butts off. They're always going to, they have the talent to go out and win. And, you can look at a lot of these past games that they have where they won. They weren't playing their best football. So they feel like if they can really continue to put it together, they can rattle off some wins. Now, going into Rice Eccles, I've been there a couple of times. It is such a tough environment. And, Kenny Dillingham is not shy about giving his reverence to Kyle Whittingham and, what he's accomplished and, in terms of building that program and building an identity, but also being able to adapt and, kind of revamp this offense with Devin Dampier leading the way. So I think there's a feeling around the ASU faithful and the media that's covering it. Like, okay, this is going to be probably a pretty good game. But, it's kind of a coin flip depending on who you ask, whether it's going to be, an ASU is going to get out of there with a win or it's going to be like a really close loss.
How's Sam Levitt playing? I guess we all expected him to take a step forward and potentially be all conference. Is he on that path?
Yeah, he did have a little bit of a rough start, especially against Mississippi State. And if you look back last year, by far his worst game was against Mississippi State. So I don't know if they just, have his number or what it is, but he's really bounced back nicely. And he actually talked this week about, maybe all this Heisman talk, Heisman dark horse and all conference and all these accolades in the offseason. Maybe he let that get to his head a little bit or, be focusing on the incorrect things. But the past few weeks, he's really been able to ground himself. And, what I have been very encouraged by the way he plays is, the way he can even run the ball. I feel like that doesn't get talked about enough, that he can make some plays with his legs, whether it's extending plays. Against Texas State, he almost threw it like it was like a Derek Jeter backhand where he kind of left his feet and delivered a perfect pass to Jordan Tyson for a touchdown. So he's one of those guys that when there's a big moment, he does not blink. He doesn't, step away from it by any means. But I feel like he's really starting to put that stride together. And that was something we also saw last year where it was about the midpoint of the season and he rattled off a stretch where it was something like he had like 16 touchdown passes and 2 interceptions in that stretch. And that's really when they started stacking wins. So I'm seeing a similar kind of trajectory for him where, non-con, he's trying to figure some things out, but he's really stepped up nicely and taken care of the football the past couple games.
I know you cover Arizona as well, or you've covered Arizona as well. My question is, where do you think there's more optimism? Is that Arizona can beat BYU at home or that Arizona State can go on the road and win at Utah?
I feel like Arizona fans, with just kind of the whiplash they got last year they came in with very high expectations last year and, it just did not work. That is a discussion probably for a whole other segment of why maybe things didn't quite click. But I think they're looking around being kind of like cautiously optimistic. But I think this game is going to be a great barometer of where U of A is in the Big 12. Their first real test was on the road against Iowa State, and Iowa State won that pretty comfortably. So I think that a home game obviously is very different for Arizona, and I think they're kind of just we're gonna wait and see where Arizona State. I think they know with their stretch coming up. They have Utah, they have Texas Tech, Iowa State in a few weeks. You have Houston. It's one of those where you need to at least split or go 3-1 if you even want to be talking about the Big 12. So I think they're very focused on the task at hand. So I'd say there's a little bit more optimism knowing what a tall task it is to go into Rice-Eccles and get a win, especially at a night game. I think there is some optimism of like, hey, if we can get this game here, then all of a sudden the ball can really get rolling against a couple other really big opponents coming up.
Jordan, we appreciate you and all of your fine work. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Great stuff, Jordan.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That is Jordan Hamm, covers Arizona State for Sports 360 AZ. Good question by you, Ben, because we talked a lot about Arizona State's defense yesterday and whether or not it's legitimate. And Jordan seems to think so. They're stout against the run.
Yeah, and one thing we did not talk about is, when you have a group returning from last season, they were good last season, they're probably going to be good this season. So if you see that pattern starting to emerge, which clearly has been the case, that's a very good sign. That's a very good thing for Arizona State. So again, I think Utah's in for a really tough game here.
That's the whole key to the game to me.
If they can run the ball.
If Utah can run the ball.
Yeah, I mean that's probably going to be the key for most Utah games the rest of the way.
I'm not claiming I'm discovering anything that is difficult to see. But if Arizona State's really good against the run, like Texas Tech was, and Utah can't make them pay, then it can be a long night.
I don't think Utah is keeping a 300-yard passing game from Devin Dampier in their back pocket for the right.
I don't either.
If they could do it, they would have done it at this point. And
Certainly
again,
against Texas Tech.
I don't think Devin Dampier is a bad passer necessarily. Like there are guys who truly can't throw the ball. I don't think that qualifies for Devin Dampier, but clearly they do not have a good deep threat. They do not have the chemistry to make some of those deep throws. Their best stuff is to the tight ends or running backs for the most part right now, or Ryan Davis, but it's not all that dynamic of a passing game.
No, it is not.
So yeah, you're going to have to run the ball. You have to figure out a way to get Wayshawn Parker going, and Devin Dampier's going to have to move the ball with his legs, and Akiri Rogers is going to have to move the ball.
Especially if it's raining.
Yeah, that's going to be a major key. So this would be a good win. Utah beats Arizona State. I think that's a very good win.
All right, we wrap up the show. Coming up next, stay tuned. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.